This might be the wildest trade idea floating around the NFL right now, and honestly, I cannot stop thinking about it. So we need to break this down together, because what I'm about to tell you could completely reshape how Dallas approaches this offseason. And before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because here at Cowboys Live News, we are on top of every single update the moment it drops. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next for this franchise. So here's the deal. There's been a ton of buzz recently about a potential blockbuster swap that would send George Pickens to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby. And when I first heard this, my jaw literally hit the floor, because this is the kind of move that changes everything for both teams involved. Now, this whole conversation really picked up steam when one ESPN analyst threw out this scenario on air, basically saying if you're playing Madden with no consequences, why not go for the throat and make this happen? The idea is simple on the surface. Dallas franchise tags Pickens if they can't work out a long-term deal, and then flips him to Vegas for one of the most dominant pass rushers in the entire league. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing, it's not as far-fetched as you might think, and there are some very real reasons why this could actually make sense for Dallas. Let me walk you through both sides of this, because I think most people are only looking at part of the picture, and there's one massive detail that almost nobody is talking about that completely changes how you should feel about this whole situation. First, let's talk about why this trade would be absolutely incredible for the Cowboys defense, because let's be honest, that unit was an absolute disaster last season. There's no sugarcoating it, there's no spinning it, they were flat out bad, and something has to change in a major way this offseason. Maxx Crosby would be a game-changing addition, because this guy is legitimately one of the top 5 edge rushers in football, and it's not even close. When you look at the numbers over the past 4 years, there is literally no defensive lineman who has played more snaps than him. None. Zero. He is the definition of an Iron Man, and he produces at an elite level while doing it. We're talking about consistent pressure, tackles for loss, sacks, the whole package, and he's been doing this while stuck on a Raiders team that has given him almost no help whatsoever. Imagine what he could do with actual talent around him. Imagine pairing him with Micah Parsons on the other side. That's the kind of pass rush that keeps offensive coordinators up at night. And here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. From a pure positional value standpoint, it is significantly easier to find a quality wide receiver than it is to find an elite edge rusher. That's just the reality of the NFL. Receivers come out of college every single year and make an immediate impact, but dominant pass rushers are rare, and when you find one, you hold on to him for dear life. So if you're Dallas and you're looking at this situation, you have to ask yourself, would you rather have a really good receiver or a truly elite defender? Because those aren't the same thing. The other factor that might surprise people is the money. Maxx Crosby is actually slightly cheaper than what Pickens would likely command on a long-term extension. We're talking a couple $1 million per year difference, and when you factor in how you can structure the cap hit in year 1, you're looking at something extremely manageable for a player of his caliber. You restructure that first year, you bring it down to maybe 14 or 15 million against the cap, and suddenly this looks like one of the better value contracts in the league for the production you're getting. So those are the positives, and they're real, they're significant, they matter. But now I have to give you the other side, because this isn't all sunshine and roses, and there are some serious concerns that any rational Cowboys fan needs to consider before getting too excited about this possibility. The biggest issue, and I mean the elephant in the room, is that you're essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul here. Yes, your defense gets better, congratulations, but what happens to your offense? You're taking away a weapon that just helped Dallas become one of the top 5 offenses in football, and you're hoping you can replace that production somehow. George Pickens is not just some random receiver, he's a legitimate playmaker who changed how defenses had to approach this Cowboys offense, and walking away from that is a massive risk. You know what works on offense right now? You've seen it with your own eyes, so why would you voluntarily make that side of the ball worse to fix the other side when there might be other ways to address the defense without sacrificing your offensive firepower? That's the question that keeps nagging at me, because it feels like you're taking a step forward and a step back at the same time instead of just finding a way to take 2 steps forward. And let's not forget the locker room element here, because Dak Prescott clearly loves having Pickens as a target. CeeDee Lamb has talked about how much he enjoys playing alongside him, and the whole offense seemed to click when Pickens arrived. Now, I'm not saying you let players make roster decisions, that's obviously not how it works, but you can't completely ignore the chemistry and the relationships that have been built. Trading away a guy your franchise quarterback is excited about throwing to sends a message whether you intend it to or not. Is that the message you want to send heading into a critical season? But here's the part that I think is being completely overlooked in all of these discussions, and this is the detail that changes everything about how realistic this trade actually is. Everyone keeps talking about this like it would be a straight up swap, Pickens for Crosby, done deal, shake hands and move on. That is absolutely not how the Raiders would view this trade, and frankly, it's not how the NFL values these two players. League insiders have indicated that Maxx Crosby's trade value is at minimum a first-round pick, and some reports suggest it could be closer to a premium package similar to what elite pass rushers have commanded in recent deals. Meanwhile, George Pickens' trade value, according to multiple reports, sits somewhere around a second-round pick, maybe with some additional compensation. Do you see the problem here? These values are not equal, not even close, and the Raiders are not going to accept a deal that leaves value on the table just because it makes for a fun hypothetical. So what does that actually mean for Dallas if they wanted to pursue this? It means they wouldn't just be trading Pickens for Crosby. They would be trading Pickens and additional assets for Crosby. We're talking about attaching picks to Pickens just to make the values match up. And now suddenly this deal looks completely different, doesn't it? You're giving up one of your best young offensive weapons plus draft capital for one player. And while that one player is excellent, you have to ask yourself if that's really the best use of your resources. I keep coming back to this point because it fundamentally changes the math on whether this makes sense. If it were truly a one-for-one swap, I could see the argument. I really could. You're getting a more valuable positional player who fills a bigger need, and you can find another receiver somewhere. But that's not reality. Reality is the Raiders picking up the phone and saying, okay, cool, we'll take Pickens, and what else are you throwing in? And at that point, I start to lose interest in this deal entirely, because now you're depleting your roster and your future assets to make one upgrade, and that's not how you build a sustainable winner in this league. Think about it from an asset management perspective. You're giving up a proven playmaker at a premium position, and you're giving up picks that could be used to add depth or address other needs, and you're hoping that one addition on defense solves all your problems. That's a lot of eggs in one basket. Would you do it? Honestly, I keep going back and forth because the idea of watching Maxx Crosby and Micah Parsons hunting quarterbacks together is almost too exciting to resist. But my brain keeps telling me there has to be a smarter way to improve this defense without gutting what works on offense. And here's what nobody seems to be considering. What if Dallas could add defensive help through the draft and free agency without making any blockbuster trades at all? What if the path to fixing that defense doesn't require sacrificing your offensive weapons? Those options exist, and they should be explored fully before you start talking about sending away one of your best players for anything. The Cowboys have needs on defense. There's absolutely no denying that, but the solution doesn't have to be this dramatic. Sometimes the best moves are the boring ones, the ones that don't generate viral trade ideas but quietly make your team better without creating new problems in the process. Now look, I get why this idea has captured everyone's imagination because it's fun, it's bold, it's the kind of move that would dominate the news cycle for weeks. And as Cowboys fans, we've been waiting for this franchise to make aggressive moves that show they're serious about winning. But being aggressive for the sake of being aggressive isn't a strategy. Being aggressive in the right spots at the right price is what separates good front offices from bad ones. So where do I land on all of this after breaking it down from every angle? I think this trade makes a lot more sense in theory than it does in practice. The idea of Maxx Crosby in Dallas is incredible. The reality of what it would cost to get him there is much less appealing. You'd be giving up Pickens, who has proven he can produce at a high level in this offense. You'd be attaching draft picks that could address other needs, and you'd be betting everything on one player, fixing a defense that has multiple holes, not just one. That's a massive gamble, and while I understand the temptation, I don't think it's the right move for this franchise at this moment in time. I'd rather see Dallas find other ways to improve the defense while keeping their offensive core intact and building through the draft the way championship teams do. But that's just my take, and I know a lot of you probably feel differently, so let me know in the comments, what would you do if you were calling the shots in Dallas? Would you pull the trigger on this deal and accept whatever additional cost comes with it? Or would you look for other ways to fix this defense without giving up Pickens? I genuinely want to hear from you because this is one of those debates where there's no clear right answer, and it comes down to how much risk you're willing to accept. Also, if you made it this far in the video, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to be covering every single development in this story and all the other Cowboys news throughout the offseason, and I want to make sure you don't miss any of it. This franchise is at a crossroads, and the moves they make in the coming months will determine whether they're a legitimate contender or just another team talking about next year. Let's see what happens together. Drop your comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.